Welcome back to the Padilla Family Homestead. Today we are back in the kitchen, well, the extended kitchen. For those that don't know, I do live in an apartment, and we're living the homesteading life as much as we can here in the apartment and learning homesteading skills. And one of those is cooking. And so what we did was we got rid of our dining room. The area I am in would be our dining room in our apartment, and we just extended out the kitchen. And it works great for us. We have an extra freezer. This is freezer or fridge. We have it as a fridge right now, and an island, and it allows me to have the space I need to cook, which is what we're doing today. We are making a gluten-free, delicious gluten-free cranberry pumpkin scones. Now, you can make this sort of savorier to have for breakfast, or you add one ingredient and it makes it perfect for an after dinner dessert. So we're gonna dive right in. Super fun, super easy. Let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we are going to start with our dry ingredients, and that is 1.5 cups of gluten-free 1-for-1 all-purpose flour. Woof. This is the flour I use. It's Bob's Red Mill 1-for-1. It's not sponsored by Bob's Red Mill, but I do find it easy. It has a good mixture of the stuff. Okay, the next thing we're going to need is 3/4 cup oatmeal. Now, not all oatmeal is gluten-free, so if you are really trying to make this gluten-free, make sure that you are paying attention to whether or not the oatmeal is gluten-free. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is 1/4 cup firmly packed brown sugar. I am using homemade brown sugar, so this really falls somewhere in between the light and the dark. I would say if you were going to go buy brown sugar, maybe go with the dark, but otherwise I'll link the video below for homemade brown sugar. It's super easy. I tried it once and I've never gone back. Okay, now we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Baking powder. Some of your, I think it's baking powder that can be, have gluten in it. But you want to make sure your baking powder and baking soda also are gluten-free if you're baking for somebody who has an intolerance. Okay, and then we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we need 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. Okay, I love the smell of pumpkin pie spice. All right, now we are going to go ahead and kind of break this up. This is a pastry blender. My suggestion when getting a pastry blender is to make sure it has screws in the end. This happens to be a Pampered Chef one, but they have multiple out there that have the screws in the end. Don't get the ones that don't show a screw. They pop off like crazy, and it makes life a nightmare to use them. And we're just going to kind of cut this in, and you just want all of your brown sugar broken up and mixed in, and everything kind of looking like one consistency here. You'll see the oats are going to stand out because they're bigger, but just have it really well mixed. I'm going to grab the butter because I need to keep it cold. Okay, so we have 1 stick of cold butter. It is important that this is cold, so don't take it out ahead of time as you are making your recipe. The other thing I should have noted that I don't think I did is I preheated the oven to 375 already. That was like right on cue. So I cut this butter down in half lengthwise, put those halves back together, roll it over, cut it in half again, and then that gives me 4 long sticks. And I'm just going to cut down little chunks. You really don't want to handle this butter as much as possible. You want to leave it cold. I'll take all these little cubes and pop it straight in. I like to coat my butter first. Coat my butter first with the flour mixture. That way it doesn't stick as much. Now at this point, you're probably still going to have to unstick the butter from the pastry blender as you go. I like using a bowl that's a little bit firmer. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of roll it down and against that edge, continually pushing the butter into the flour mixture, and every so often coating it, because as you cut the butter in, it's going to expose clean edges of the butter, and those will stick to things more. So to make my life easier, I like to make sure I just toss it and coat. And you're going to do this until everything is it's well cut in. You want like small pebbles. Let's see if I can show you here. So this size is too large. Everything should be about this size, which you can barely see. Everything should be about this size or smaller. So just really get it chopped in. Okay, I'm going to bring this closer so you can see it. So you can see it's kind of just crumbly. This is really the biggest you would want to go. These little butter pads, these little tiny ones, are about the size you want. But if you have a few of these bigger ones, that's fine, but nothing bigger than that. Okay, clean off this. Now it's time to add in our wet ingredients. It's half a cup of pumpkin, and it's a 1/4 cup of coconut milk. I'm going to pop this back in the fridge. Okay, so I'm going to start mixing this with a spatula. And this is a drier mixture, so I start with the spatula and then I move over to my hands. So it's up to you if you wear gloves at this point or not. Just make sure your hands are clean, obviously, before starting this recipe. Okay, and what happens is this kind of gets harder to mix in, and I don't want to overwork that butter. So I'm going to take this, wipe off my spatula, and I'm going to take my hand and I'm kind of going to fold the dry ingredients over. Trying to get it pushed into those wet ingredients. And then I just start squeezing it together like you're a little kid playing with slime or Play-Doh or whatever else, when you just kind of grab it and push it into each other. So you're going to do this just enough to get everything kind of incorporated. You do not want to overwork this. So what's going to happen is if your hands are too hot, you're going to start melting that butter. So you really want to make sure that you don't overdo it. Trying to get this. I have one little side right here where I need to pick up this oatmeal. Okay. That's far enough. I need one hand clean right now. So we have 2 ingredients that we're going to add now. I am going to do the optional ingredient, but first is the one that makes it a cranberry scone, and that is cranberries. So I'm putting in about 1/4 cup. could wash your hands in between that, but that's okay. So 1/4 cup of cranberries, and then I'm also going to add about 1/4 cup of white chocolate chips. This is the optional item. And I decided to add, so the white chocolate chips I get and the dried cranberries, I get the ones from Azure Standard, and the dried cranberries are done with, I think it has apple juice in them. And then the white chocolate are allergen friendly, which is nice. A lot of these things will have fillers or anti-caking agents or something like that on it. Alright, so I just mix it in just enough. I barely touched it, just to incorporate those in. And now I'm going to very, very lightly dust my working space. And I'm talking like maybe half a teaspoon. You can see it's not very much. So I'm only going to knead a couple of times onto this mixture, onto the flour. And again, this is a sticky dough. Gluten-free, you really don't want it to get really dry. That's when it gets its chalky flavor. So it is a stickier dough. If you have a hard time working on the floured surface, use parchment paper. Because this is going to get stuff stuck to your table. I just use a bench scraper and scrape it all off. All right. So the goal is to form this into a 1-inch circle. And I'm doing it with that blocked. All right. So form it into a 1-inch circle. I'm going to go wash my hands, and I'll be back to do the next step. All right, so I brought you up here to show you this next part. Now I have a cookie sheet, and I'm going to parchment line it. I did a terrible job cutting that, but hey, it works. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take this circle and we're going to cut it into 8 pieces. So we're going half, and then in quarters, and then each quarter in half. The next thing we're going to do, because this is so sticky, is we're going to use that spatula and the knife and kind of pick this up and set the wedge down onto the parchment paper. I actually could just use a bench scraper for this, and I didn't think about that before I started this part, so it is what it is. These don't need a whole lot of room to like rise or grow or anything like that. You just want, they will widen a little bit, but the main thing you really want here is enough room for the edges to get crispy. Otherwise, these are kind of, if you don't let those edges get crispy and cook from the outer edges in, it can be doughier in the middle if you don't do this part. So I just stagger back and forth. And just like that, it's done. And this is a mess, but it does clean off with the dough scraper. So I'm gonna pop this in the oven for 25 to 30 minutes at 375 until the edges are lightly browned. So I'll bring you in and show you that when they're done. I'm gonna pop these in and get this area cleaned up. So I put these in, and a minute later I totally forgot something. I was cleaning up the counter here and I forgot about the topping. This is great when I do videos like this. I always forget something. So, but I want to make sure I do this recipe right for you guys. At the very beginning, you want to do about a tablespoon of sugar. And I'm using vanilla sugar. And you want to do some cinnamon. You can do a teaspoon. You do a little less, whatever hits your fancy. The more cinnamon you do, the darker it's going to be on the top. And you sprinkle the top of these. These were only in the oven for about a minute, so I'm not too stressed about it. Okay. And you could top the top of these with butter if you want to. I don't find that it's necessary to. If I really want to make sure that it sticks, I'm just gonna pat it just a little bit. But I feel like it's fine with that. So you could do way less of the topping because there's a ton left. Or you can sprinkle after you heat it up. I'm gonna go ahead and get these back in the oven now and restart the timer. Alright, so these have been cooling for a few minutes. The pan's still hot though, so I want to move them to this tray to finish cooling. Whew. I don't know if I'm putting these in the right order or not. And they are done. Aren't they beautiful? Oh my goodness. The bright orange of the pumpkin, the darkness of the cinnamon on top, the little chunks of cranberry and white chocolate are, oh, so good. Mmm. These are good. This is my breakfast this morning. Well, one of these is my breakfast this morning. The rest I'll put away. I hope you make these. I hope you enjoy them. I think they're great. What I really love is that these allergen friendly white chocolate chips are not super sweet. So it's not like overpowering, like a punch of sweetness. It just adds that little bit of flavor and it's so good. I love these. So I will have the recipe link below for you and take a look at it, try it out. I think I just love these. I love them. So I'm gonna keep enjoying this and we will see you in the next video. So good.